And we're going to stick close to the time, given that there's lots of good things to share. I'm Greta Chapman, and I'm a part of the Cities Committee on the 50th and Greenway. And I'm going to be the moderator. I'm certain that these three folks don't need any moderation. So I will introduce them, and then we'll go in the order of their seating. Corey Christianson has been employed with the Journey Museum and Learning Center for 6 years, most recently in the role of researcher. Throughout her tenure at the Journey Museum and Learning Center, Corey has researched and set up 14 temporary exhibits and made multiple presentations both online and at the museum, with many of them on the topic of the 1972 Black Hills flood. And yesterday, they had a reception for the exhibit, and it is incredible. So you can see much of Corey's research within that exhibit as well. She has degrees in history and English from the University of South Dakota and a master's in museum studies from the University of Oklahoma. Adam Weaver has served as an analyst for the city's Geographic Information System, GIS, since 2019. I also know him through his caving and his passion about that as well. You can ask him about that afterwards. The department provides mapping services, data, and technical support to the staffs of the City of Rapid City, Pennington County, and to the public. Weaver has developed a number of innovative mapping items, including special flood mapping features, allowing online visitors to review historical and current information about sites along the 1972 flood path, now the site of the city's Greenway. Seth Tupper, who is with SDPB now and had the documentary last night that was just amazing, and has also done and is doing work with Johnny Sunby as well, is a veteran journalist, serves as supervising senior producer at SDPB, worked for the Rapid City Journal, Mitchell Daily Republic, and the Daily Globe in Worthington, Minnesota. He's authored Calvin Coolidge in the Black Hills, a contributor to Fedor's guidebook, The Black Hills of South Dakota, and most recently co-author of Surviving the 72 Flood. He has won a National Edward R. Murrow Award in 2021 for investigative reporting. So we will start with Corey Christianson and her work as well.
Could I have the PowerPoint back? There we go. So, as Greta said, my name is Corey Christianson. I do work at the Journey Museum and Learning Center as the researcher, most specifically for the 1972 Black Hills flood. The Journey Museum and Learning Center does believe that as the local museum that we should tell the story of the Black Hills flood, and we strive to do that every day, and especially this year with the 50th commemoration. I'm going to be speaking on how the Journey Museum and Learning Center essentially created the exhibit. We're going to talk about what we will be doing now that the exhibit is up, and how we have worked on and will continue to collaborate with other researchers in the process. This exhibit opened yesterday. We are very proud to have it in the Stanford Adelstein Gallery in the museum, and it talks about the 1972 Black Hills flood. The exhibit itself does have stories that are pretty well known, and then we tried to have stories in there as well that are maybe not as well known. Discussions about the volunteerism that happened in the aftermath of the flood, discussions about the response from other states and countries in the aftermath of the flood. And that research was done during COVID, while we were all kind of shut up in our homes. And thank goodness for Troy's ability to go, yes, Corey, you can go here, research this, just don't get sick, is essentially what he said. Our exhibit, if I talk too much about it, I'm going to cry, but it was a lot of effort, and we cannot thank Simpson's Printing enough for helping us with the exhibit. Please come see it at the Journey Museum. So the Journey Museum, in a way to preserve the story and in a way to preserve the legacy, we are also trying to make changes on vocabulary. So one of the major vocabulary changes we have made is saying Black Hills Flood instead of Rapid City Flood. This is because the flood did come through Nemo and Keystone and Box Elder as well as Rapid City, and so we want to recognize the fact that there were lives lost in each of those communities as well. We say commemoration versus anniversary because anniversary has such a positive connotation, and this is not necessarily a positive event. And then we say fatalities versus victims, and that's because everybody who survived the flood, everybody who was in the Black Hills at the time of the flood in those communities is considered a victim of the flood. They lost a friend, they lost their house, they lost a car, they know someone who lost someone. Fatality is those who lost their lives. So what's next? This is the big part of this, is what's next for the Journey Museum. I was actually on KNBN this morning talking about, or they recorded me yesterday, but we were talking about our collaboration with the Rapid City Police Department. The Journey Museum and Learning Center has been able to and honored to work with the Rapid City Police Department on verifying fatalities of the 1972 flood. Their cold case detective, Wayne Keefe, has been instrumental in helping us figure out how to read death certificates and how to look up different information that we may not be able to look up otherwise. So the Journey Museum will continue to make sure that we have every single fatality recognized as time goes on. The Journey Museum has also been working on learning more about political response to the flood. We have been looking at how Governor Knipe and Senator McGovern responded to the flood, as well as how President Nixon responded to the flood. And all of that information is actually kept at the University of South Dakota Special Archives. And you can see some of the responses to letters at the exhibit in the museum. But we're doing this because when COVID happened and how Governor Noem responded is almost a direct reflection of how Governor Knipe responded. And so we want to kind of dig deeper and see how those political responses changed and actually helped the Black Hills recover. And finally, I'm trying not to take too much time because Seth and Adam both have fascinating parts of preserving the history. I want to talk about the public library. This whole week, they have been collecting oral histories from survivors of the Black Hills flood. And I am very proud to be able to say that they are continuing to collect oral histories after this week, and they would really, really appreciate being contacted and having an appointment set up to talk to them, because we do need to preserve those stories. So, plug for the library. If you have a story you would like to tell or know someone who does, please reach out to them. You can call them or email them. And the library as well has a phenomenal website that has a lot of information about the Black Hills flood on it. And I'll hand it over to Seth.
So I don't have a PowerPoint, but just do you guys have the ability to pull up a website and just display it on here? Just be sdpb.org/flood is all it would be. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. So while they pull that up, I'm Seth Tupper. I grew up in East River, Kimball and Weston Springs, and I went to South Dakota State University and got a journalism degree there and spent 18 years in newspapers before I switched over to South Dakota Public Broadcasting. And my sort of role in trying to preserve stories of the flood came up last year, about a year ago, when Johnny Sunby, who many of you know as a local photographer, Johnny Sunby Photography, called me one day and said that he'd always had this idea that he wanted to do a photo book about flood survivors, and he wanted to know if I would work with him on writing survivor stories if he did the photography. And I thought about it, and I thought it would be great to do the project, but also great if we could get video and audio of all the interviews for SDPB. He agreed to that, and my bosses at SDPB agreed to it, and so we set out on this journey to preserve a whole bunch of stories of people who survived the flood and experienced the flood and responded to the flood. And so we did 27 interviews, mostly last spring and summer and fall, with people from anywhere from people who were trapped in their car in the flood to National Guard soldiers who responded to the flood to Ozzy Osheim and some others who were involved in the funeral business at the time, and had just a fascinating journey. For most of the interviews, we went to the spot where the person's story occurred. So if they formerly had a house along the creek, we went there and we photographed them at that spot, and then we had them tell us their story there. And so a lot of things came out of that, kind of a multi-pronged effort. The first was the book that Johnny and I produced, Surviving the 72 Flood. And it's got 27 stories in there from the people we interviewed. And so we worked real hard on that and got that out just in time for the 50th commemoration here. And then at SDPB, we got to work on a lot of other things. We turned the audio interviews that we had, if you scroll down on that page, since February on our midday show, In the Moment on the radio, just scroll down all the way to the bottom. We've been running 2 to 3 minute segments from all the interviews that we did of people telling their own stories in their own words. So we've been doing that. We also produced a 4-part podcast from our interviews that's available now, called Surviving the 72 Flood, where you can see the link there. And then all the way at the top, as Greta mentioned, we just finished our documentary, video documentary, Surviving the 72 Flood, which was screened at the Journey last night for the first time publicly and is now available on YouTube and watchsdpb.org, and will be on TV, SDPB1, tonight at 9 Central, 8 Mountain. So, and that's our page for everything that we produced is sdpb.org/flood. Everything is there. So, just a couple words about, why we did this. We did get questions throughout this from people, which were valid questions about, why would you want to make people relive some of these horrible experiences? And I do understand that question, and some people it's still too painful to go back and relive some of the things that happened during the flood. But really, I think what we're looking toward is the next generation, when the 75th and the 100th anniversaries come around, and some of the survivors that won't be here anymore to tell these stories. And we want future generations to know what this was like, what people went through, what they endured, what they overcame to give us the city that we have today. And to understand from hearing these personal stories why it's so important to have good policy concerning the floodplain, early warnings, and everything that we can do to prevent another massive loss of life from a flood. So that was our role in trying to preserve some of these stories, and I'd be happy to take questions later.
All right, so I'm Adam Weaver, and as I mentioned, I'm the GIS analyst for the city and the county, and mine is a little bit different. And so if you guys could go ahead and bring up my page. So I'm going to have to kind of drive my interactive maps from the back of the room. So this is the last you have to look at me during the presentation. So let me go to the back for a second. think this is working. Okay. All right. So, as I mentioned before, I made two interactive maps to look at the flood in a different way than stories that Corey and Seth looked at that they just talked about. The easiest way to get to them is go to the flood website and go to impacts. And under this, you have a link to both of my mapping products. The first one is photo driven. So this page it has a number of photos that were taken along the floodway, mostly by the Journey Museum staff. And it opens like this, and it gives you a little information about how to use this map. So you close that, and then as you can see, there's these dots along the floodway. And this map is pretty friendly and interactive. Each one of these dots represents one of the pictures. And you can read, in fact, the signage along the floodway. And you can zoom in and look at different things. And just like the other map we'll look at in a minute, one of the things our office did, and Ellen Madden, who's the technician for our office, spent a tremendous amount of time doing this. She made it so that every home and business and building that was here before the flood that was washed away is there, where it would have been on today's imagery. So this is 2021 imagery with 1971 homes and streets that are now missing in this area. And so if you have this on your mobile phone, you can tell exactly where you're standing with the blue dot that you expect on many different mobile phone applications. So this one, and as you can see, there's still these two pictures because they're in the map that we're located in. So you can see that one of them is right there, and that's these two photos. And so with this map, and we're hoping to get more photos added even from this week, more photos will populate into this map, and over time, there'll be a lot more things you can look at on the map. Right now, there are 41 different sites that are annotated. Let me go back to the map here, which is hard, because even though I'm not very old, I can barely read the words at the top of that screen up there. Can you guys go back one page for me? I can't. It's slightly off the edge of the projector up there. Thank you. Okay, and so the other map, this map has a tremendous amount of data in it. So this map is heavily data-driven and is built on the same platform which Rapid Map is built onto. And so again, as it opens up, you have this kind of lengthy description of what the map is for. And the impetus of making both these maps is that as people that were here for the flood get older and move away and they become disconnected to this place, no matter where you are, you can look at these maps and look at these places. So this one, again, you can zoom in and out just like the previous map, except and this map also has photos embedded within it. So going to a similar area that we looked at before, so you can see there's the homes, and Ellen Madden has added every home now. So this map currently, I think, has 65% of the homes on it that we're looking at today. By the end of the day, it will have every home on it. But what's again interesting is you can see that where the houses were, and then on this map, if you go up here to identify, which I think is what that says. Yeah, for those that are closer than me. Yeah, with glasses, people with glasses. And you click on it, it will let you look at information about all the different sites, which is pretty neat. And then if you click on any park in the town, you can see a photograph of the park, how it looks today, which is interesting as well if you no longer live here. So by clicking on, I just didn't imagine that one, but I see the screen this big. The park. And this one does not have a photograph yet, because it's not a real park, it's a greenway. But anyway, all of the actual named parks have photos of them. So like if we go over to, let's go to this one, because I know it has a photo. That's the street. Yeah, I'm clicking on the street. Anyway, it's much easier to do when you're doing it by yourself on a screen than it is on a projector from the back of the room. But anyway, as I mentioned, but all of them do have photos, I promise. They are there. But anyway, so that's kind of the way this map works. And then it also has, as you can see, the outline of the flood itself. And if you close these screens and go back, these are the things that are available in the map. So you can toggle on and off the buildings that are currently here today as well if you want to see current buildings, and those are updated nightly as buildings are added to our layer. And you can toggle on and off streets. You can look at the parks. You can look at the amenities within the parks. And again, all these things are on this map because they wouldn't have been there without the flood, right? And so the Greenway is the centerpiece of the map. And again, with even the structures in the parks, you can see photographs of them. So that's kind of what we put together. And what's kind of the neat thing about this project here is that it's going to continue to grow and improve. 2 days ago, we got a map from 1972, June 26th, that the Rapid City Journal published. And we're going to geo-reference that Rapid City Journal map into this map, so it'll be a layer just like the background imagery you see today. We'll have the Rapid City Journal's map in there as well. So every time we get a new piece of information, it will go into this map, and that's going to continue over time. So not just on the anniversaries of the event, but on every day, the map will be a little bit different. So this one we're looking at right now, again, is at the flood website, or you can also get to them by going to rapidmap.org. And so it's currently sitting right below RapidMap, which many people know how to use. So they'll be available from both places. And again, if folks have ideas or ways to improve these mapping features, we'd love to have more pictures. If you have information that it's missing, we can add it pretty rapidly. So yes, that's our project.
So we have a little bit more time. If there's any questions from the audience to any of the speakers about their projects or what might be next for them as well. Go ahead.
One thing that would be very interesting to do would be to have two different layers. So you'd have one layer that was all, a green dot that said these are all photos of the day, and a different layer that was all red dots that were photos from the 72 or 71. And so if there's a database of those photos, we would definitely want to implement them into the map. Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I think would be very interesting too for the map, since you're wearing a USGS shirt, would be if USGS would run the flow model of the flood today and give me a polygon of what it would look like with today's topography after development. Yeah, that'd be a really cool feature on the map as well. Yeah, I don't know if the 2018 LiDAR is high enough res, but it'd be pretty cool.
Okay.
Give me the web address. I can't read it.
Yeah. So the map that we're looking at right now is on. Both maps are on the 1972 flood website, which Greta probably has on the top of her head.
It's rapidcityflood.com.
Right. Yeah, and then they can also be accessed on rapidmap.org as well. So there's two locations to find them.
Yes. Yep. Go ahead.
Do you have the aerial photograph of the day or two after the flood?
Yeah, so we have the 72 imagery as well. Yeah, and there's actually there's a product that exists out there that I think might have been made by USGS. I'm not sure who made it, where it's a PDF that actually you can click on the PDF squares and it will move you around that imagery that exists out there, but which is not part of this map because it's a PDF, but we do have that imagery available. Yeah.
Just another source of information. At 4 o'clock today, there will be ribbon cutting, actually curtain dropping, for a storyboard that will continue to share the story, and it'll evolve. It's a very large storyboard at the monument, 50 feet by 11 feet high. And the intention behind it is, as we have done over the past couple of days, is to honor the lives that were lost and to recognize and value the Greenway that came from that, and to continue to tell that story, in particular to new people, to visitors that come here, and for the generations. So there's a lot of momentum and some excellent work that's been done and will continue as part of what this story it means, and the value that we have from the Greenway as well. So, the stories that have been recorded, and as the presenters have talked about, the value of the importance of sharing those stories and connecting them to the content. We really hope that going forward for the next 50 years, that this storytelling continues and the information becomes a part of who we are as a community and for generations. With that, let's give the presenters a round of applause. Feel free to ask them questions if you'd like as individuals, and then we'll be shifting rooms again with the programs. Thank you for being here.